Hey everyone, Hobby here. Today I thought I would give you guys a long overdue tank update video, talk a little bit about the livestock as well as what is going on with the equipment. Anyways, stay tuned. Let's go and start off with the fish. Right now, I've got two clownfish in here. They just hang around in this corner in that cave for the most part, dig around in the sand. They bring some really nice bright colors to the tank. I've also got my trusted yellow tang, who's probably not doing as much work as he should be. The yellow eye coal tang, I find him to be or her to be a much more efficient algae cleaner in the system, at least. The big yellow tang kind of just eats pellets all day. And then I've also got 4 Bartlett Anthiases in this tank right now, and they're a little bit shy in front of the camera, and I also dimmed the lights a little bit for filming, so they're kind of hanging out in there, hiding, but most of the time they're very active and they come out and hover around on the kind of like the mid-top level, water level, and just wait for pellets to be fed for the most part. Then of course I've got my Malinaris Wrasse. He seems a little bit confused right now. Looks like he's just swimming up against the edge of the glass. But he's beautiful and he really brings some nice variety in terms of fish color. That's all the fish I have. I've also got this little peppermint shrimp in here. He's much more active at night. He seems to just dwell underneath this cave most of the daytime. In terms of coral, I've got a pretty mixed variety of SPS, LPS, and softies. I've tried to group them somewhat. Most of the softies are on this rock on the left here. You can see it's getting quite taken over by the zoas. There's some clove polyps up top here. And on the other side, I've got a nice, the name is slipping my mind right now. Nice green. And there's a Duncan that's I've had for a very long time. He doesn't seem to be doing very well in this system. Maybe because I'm running low nutrients, so he's not doing great. But he's been basically that size for over a year, so I'm okay with him just being the way he is. I've got some mushrooms hidden in these caves. They really pop when the blues are on. And then I've also got some nice jawbreaker mushrooms right here on the edge. I started off with a tiny piece that was about the size of a pinky nail, and now it's spat off a whole bunch of babies. And maybe I'll give some of these away to some of the viewers. Just send me a message. You might have to pay for shipping though. And then over here, I also have some softies, just some zoas that I kind of growing on, taking over this rock here on the base. They look much better in blues. I film with the whites on, and then the colors don't pop as much. In terms of LPS, I've got quite a bit. I've got some chalices, small chalice frags here in the back. I try to keep them on plugs, and I'll probably move them because they are pretty aggressive and will sting quite a bit at night to whatever is next to them. So I'll have to isolate these. This is my prized master Skully. I got him as a very small baby, and he's got some green, yellow, orange, as well as dark purple stripes, or actually pink stripes. It's really hard to see right now in this lighting, but I'll show a photo just to let you guys know what it looks like with nice blues on. Then I've got my candy cane up here. We've got a variety of Acropora in the tank. Oh, here, let's continue with the LPS first. This is my huge, massive bubble coral, and I need to figure out a way to frag this guy because he's getting absolutely massive, and he's taking up a whole bunch of space and kind of obstructing flow a little bit into that cave. I think I should be able to get a bandsaw and cut him up, but at the same time, he's such a nice large size. I don't really want to cut him up. Oh look, all the fish are out because the auto feeder just ran and turned on. Now you can see them all kind of come out. I'm pretty happy with the fact that every single one of my fish right now eats pellets. That makes just feeding fish and regulating the tank so much easier. So if you can get to a stage where you can feed all your fish with pellets, at least for the most part, obviously you want to supplement some frozen and seaweed here and there, but if you can't get to a point where you can feed them all pellets, it's just going to create a much better setup for you overall. At least that's my recommendation. Here's another, let's go back to the LPS. I've got a nice green trachea here. I've had him forever. I don't know if he's grown or not, but he's almost 2 or 3 years old in this tank, or 2 years old in this tank. He seems to do well. I'm sure he would like some more nutrients, but he does extend his tentacles at night, and I do try to, feed him some pellets and coral food every now and then. So my other LPS, I've got some nice acans that all started off as single heads, and now they're turning into some pretty nice, large golf ball sized colonies. Here is my Trachophilia, or Welso. And it is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure if it will show up as well when just the whites are on, but when Itinics are on, this thing just pops. And the color on this one will come here and there, but right now I think it's at its peak. It's just doing really great right now in the tank. Let's talk a little bit about the SPS. I've got a stylo here that I suffered a loss, or most of it died off when I was gone for about 3 weeks in China. It's still alive, and hopefully it'll grow out and I can trim off the dead stuff and it'll turn into a potentially nice colony, because it's actually a very, very nice color. It's a nice dark pink, and it shows up great even under whites. So I really like that one. Nothing expensive, but again, just really, really nice color on it. I've got a green goblin, Acropora. That right there is a CB Atomic Fireball. It hasn't colored up that nicely yet in my tank, probably because I am running ULN, and I'm not giving him a whole bunch of light right now. I'm still trying to acclimate some of these acros to the LED lighting, because they did come from halide and T5 systems. So I'm just giving them some time, and they are starting to crust quite a bit on the plugs, so I think they're on their way to start showing some real growth. Same with these acros here on the rocks. They're all crusting really nicely. Yep. Same thing here, just more acros. Over here, this is my prized Monty Island, as I call it. This rock, basically, all of it is just dominated by Monties of different types. Got a green plating Monty right there. Some red ones. Tropic Thunder. A lot of these fancy names, I don't always remember them. There's a nice orange, kind of orange-red one right there. And it actually kind of shows up as yellow. So shows some yellow hues when the UV and blues are on. And up here, of course, I've got some very nice Digifrags. And their colors are just absolutely great. And they are kind of pastel, but that seems to kind of be the trend in the ULN systems like this. Like, I keep 0 nitrate and 0 phosphate, more or less, or hovering around there. And it seems to keep the algae quite a bit at bay. I noticed that if I ever try to raise or let the nutrients even get a little bit higher, then I do end up getting some algae. And that's different for everyone's system. You know, everyone's system is very, very different. Some people keep high levels of nutrients and still are able to not have algae go rampant in their tanks. But for my tank, having any algae at all, nutrients at all, really starts, algae really wants to start taking off. But I'm happy with where my tank's at right now, and I think I'll just keep it UL at this point. Trying to finick too much with the system, worries me a little bit. Could maybe cause a crash of some kind if I cause any kind of imbalance to the biology and chemistry. So I'm very happy with what I've got right now. Of course, there's a green slimer in here. He's about a year old now, but he was started off as a little pinky-sized nub, and now he's spat off some, nice growth. And I really hope that I can fill in this upper right corner with a nice colony of green slimer. I think it'll look really nice. And then I got some frags on the back there that didn't appreciate my UL intake on reefing, and so the two on the right are actually, they've kind of just been like that for almost a month now, and I don't think, hopefully they make it. Their tips did get burned a little bit. The one on the left, I'm not sure if that one will make it, but I'm keeping them there on the rack for now, and then hopefully I can salvage something of them in the coming future. All right, that's it for the livestock. Let's kind of move over to the equipment. Let's go ahead and start off with the main equipment. In terms of lighting, I've got 3 LEDs, 2 Hydra 26s, and 1 Hydra 52. I've had pretty good success with these. I'm sure, T5s or maybe Ecotech lights can get some better growth, but I have no complaints about these lights. They work great. I've had no issues. They've got a nice app, and these old ones, the 26 and 52s, they still have Wi-Fi connectivity on them as opposed to the new ones. So I can actually, adjust them while I'm away from the house, which is not really that useful. You rarely adjust the light schedules while you're away. Although it is a nice feature, like I could technically turn them off if something were to happen. I spotted something on the webcam or something, and I could turn them off away from home. Flow-wise, I've got 2 MP40s on the back. This is not the ideal location for pumps like this. I would say that you'd probably want to have them on each side instead of the back. That way you just create some more turbulent flow for your corals. But, if you can't tell already, I'm pretty anal about aesthetics of the tank. So I don't like having any equipment on either the right or the left of my tank. And so I opted to put them on the back and just turn up the flow quite a bit. And it seems to be working pretty well. I also have these supplemental pumps these small J bows on the back in the corner to kind of deal with some of the flow on the back side of the tank, make sure I don't have any stagnant water anywhere. But yeah, that's more or less the equipment that's up top. I got an auto feeder right here with a floating ring. The ring is not really that necessary anymore. I've got my return pump to shut off every time this thing turns on. So that ring is kind of redundant at this point. I might just get rid of it. Let's go into the sump and see what we've got going on over here. Turn on the light in here. So for a return pump, I've got a Octopus Varios 4, and it's been running on the tank for 2 years now, and I have no problem with it. It's a DC pump, works great, super quiet. It has 1 to 10 volt controllability, which works great with my aquarium controller. So I'm really happy with that. If that ever fails, I do have a Vectra as a backup. So whenever that does fail, I'll replace it with a Vectra. Not sure why I picked Vectra. I had opportunity to buy one at a pretty good price, so I just bought it. Heater, right now, Bowling got a single Cobalt 150 watt heater. It rarely gets that cold here in Texas, so I'm plenty good with just 150 watt heater. And it's pretty old now though. It's been 2 years. I probably should replace it. It doesn't have an external controller on it. It does have an built-in temperature controller that works pretty great, and I let that regulate the water temperature. And then as a backup, I have the Profilux 4 to shut it off if it ever goes above 80 or 81. I've got a UV sterilizer that's actually not running right now. It's just in the sump. I used it a while ago to attempt to treat dinoflagellates. Turned out the type that I had didn't really require a UV sterilizer. And right now I've just shut it off because I find that it kills quite a bit of beneficial bacteria in the water column. Maybe in the future I'll turn it on, but right now my system is running great without it. So it's just dead equipment that's sitting in the tank. I've got a Octopus SS, I think 110. It's an older model, but it works great. It's super compact. The bubbler is inside of, or it's an internal skimmer, so it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. I really like it. And you can see another thing with it is that I've got it hooked up to a CO2 scrubber. This is probably the most complicated part of the sump. It's got a bunch of tubes in it that feed fresh air, recirculated air, and all that's being regulated by some smart home equipment. But I find that it helps keep my pH stable, very stable. Like right now, my pH does not go below 8.1 and it does not go above 8.25. So I'm keeping it very, very stable. And that's mainly attributed to the CO2 scrubber that I have. And if you're interested in how I set that up, go ahead and watch that video. It's somewhere on my channel. The last thing in the sump, I've also got a carbon filter. Honestly, I don't really know if it's doing much for my system. I actually rarely replace it. My water clarity is pretty good. I have been doing water changes every week as of late, and so running carbon probably isn't doing much. I think it's actually, right now, it's just housing a bunch of bacteria in the media, if anything. And so swapping it out, it will be the only thing that I do the day that I swap out that. carbon media. One of my big tips in reefing in general is that whenever you do maintenance of any kind, do it very slowly. Like if you're gonna do cleaning, don't go ahead and clean your whole sump, clean your skimmer, clean your carbon media, change out your recirculating skimmer media, syrup to sand. Don't do a whole bunch of maintenance in one day. You're just asking for disaster. You're changing too much at one time, and you could definitely have a crash or get dynos or just cause huge system instability. So my biggest tip is just if you're gonna mess with anything, like especially like replacing carbon, just do it by itself. Don't change anything else in the system that day or the next day or two. Okay, that's everything in the sump, I think. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other equipment that I got. So this is probably the most, or some of the most expensive stuff on the system, besides lights and the tank itself. But I have a Proflux 4 GHL aquarium controller with 2 power bars as well as 2 dosers. These 2 dosers dose right now Triton Other Methods, which is a 4-part solution which just provides traces and your alk and your calcium magnesium. So there's nothing that special about Triton Other Methods, I think. It's not the same as the regular Triton method because it doesn't have a bunch of the chemicals that feed algae growth. So you can run it basically on any system. Right now I'm just doing a carbon dosing system to regulate my nutrients and just feeding or dosing Triton Other Methods supplemented with weekly water changes to maintain my parameters. So that takes up 4 of them. The other 4 are 2 of them are being used for reef energy, which is like a coral food / amino acid, and it comes in 2 parts. They recently made a 1-part solution, so it actually make one of the containers open for me to do something else. But right now it's taken up 2, and it's inside this little truck cooler that I got, which fits perfectly in the system, and it just keeps my coral food refrigerated inside of this very compact interface. The other 2 things that I've got back there, one is Nopox, and the other one is nitrate. I haven't really been dosing nitrate lately, but you know, I only really do it if I want to try to see if I can color some stuff up better. But right now I'm actually not dosing it, so it's not being used. But the last one there is dosing Nopox, which I dose every single day. And I try to dose it to the limit where I just barely get undetectable nutrients. So if I'm testing nitrate and phosphate and I run into a straight 0 number, then I will turn it back down a little bit, dial it back down until I get to the point where I read, 1 or 2 parts per billion phosphate and just get some barely pink on my nitrate test kit. So I like to hover around there. Right now I'm dosing about 5 to 6 mils a day of Nopox to keep the tank the way it is. What else can I say about this? I've got a UPS backup system right here. This is not to power up the tank. It's purely to keep the Proflux online during a power outage. I'm not using that to power up my lights. I'm not powering the heater with it. It's just to back up the controller and make sure that it stays on at all times. Okay, on this other side, it's not completely done yet in terms of layout, but I've got a KH director as well as another doser. So the doser is connected to the Proflux on the other end, and it just runs 4 alkalinity test a day. And honestly, I didn't know how useful it was until I had it. I mean, I used to test alkalinity once every single day, either in the morning or at the evening. And just having the ability to, you know, not do that, and it frees up so much time. And not just in the fact that it just takes 5 minutes every day, but it frees up time in the sense that I don't have to be there that day to test alkalinity, which is great. You can get a whole bunch of the reagent. You know, you don't even have to. You can pick how many times you want to test in a day. You can do up to 24 tests a day. Obviously, that's excessive. I don't think anybody needs that. 4 for me works great. Anything less than 1 or less than 2 is, you know, 2 is probably the lowest I would ever go. Once in the morning, once in the evening. If you have a system like that, anyways, there's no need to conserve a whole bunch of the reagent. It's not expensive. I got 3 liters of reagent for $80. That will last me maybe a year and a half. Yeah, maybe about a year and a half. And if you think about $80 over, you know, 18 months, you were talking about $4 a month to test alkalinity. I mean, that's, when I was doing the HANA checker, I was running through one of those vials every month. I mean, that's, I can't remember how much they cost, but I think it's close to $10, and you have to do it by hand. So highly recommended. There is a, you know, higher cost up front, and you don't have to have the Profilux to use the KH Director. You can buy a standalone doser and just run the KH Director by itself. But it works really great, and I find it reliable. I know what it's doing. I understand the methodology behind it. So yeah, 100% would recommend if you have the spare money. Those 2 containers on the bottom, one is wastewater and another one is fresh salt water. And basically what I do is I pump in 100 mLs of salt water into the tank before testing, and then 30 minutes later it tests and it dumps the wastewater there. That way I just keep the salinity of the system consistent over the course of 1 month, which is the time it takes to fill up and empty one of these containers. So the maintenance is really easy. I just pull out the tubes, I empty out the wastewater container, I fill the new one up with salt water whenever I do my water changes, and that's it. Super, super easy. Over here I got another UPS. That's just to back up the KH Director. It's also got, you know, some of the other miscellaneous equipment that I want to back up. I think it's, right now I've got maybe the J-bows routed in there. I think that's about it. Yeah. But for the most part, it's really to keep the hardware in check. I don't really use these UPSs to power up anything in the system. The only thing that I had backup battery for in the tank is the Ecotech pumps, just to keep flow. And I have it set up so that the pumps turn to like a 20% setting, and that'll keep the tank running for at least a day until I can figure out how to deal with any long-term power outages. I'm considering buying a gas backup generator, but I have yet to pull the trigger on that. Those are like $500 for a decent one. You could probably get a crappier one for $300. And it's not something I see myself, you know, it's been 2 years, I haven't ran it. So it's really a high level of redundancy past having batteries. And I'm pretty close to the city. And so anything more than 24 hours in terms of power outage is pretty unexpected, but it's definitely on the back of my mind in terms of things to buy for redundancy. And up here, lastly, I just got my microscope, and if you haven't watched my first episode already of that, I took a look at, you know, the stuff in my filter sock underneath this microscope, and it was a pretty interesting video. So I'll be making more of those, so go ahead and stay tuned for that. Anyways, that's it. This is my whole system. Thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, and it was probably a pretty long video by now, I don't think there's anything else I missed. Oh, well, maybe up here, the Profilux has some testing probes, pH, temperature, redox, and salinity or conductivity. And here you can see my dosing lines. They're just mounted on the back of my tank. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.